This is my Napoleon GDS50N gas fireplace, and it has been rattling very much with the blower fan. So the owner's manual is pretty good. It actually shows you how to take the fan out and clean it. And so I'm going to show you what I'm doing. And the fan was filthy. I blew it out with an air compressor, and it's now just like new in there. It was filled with dust, tons of it, so I'm sure it was running out of balance, causing vibration. However, the way it mounts, I'm not overly convinced I won't get some vibration again, so I'm going to do a couple of things when I put it back in. So the fireplace is actually quite nice to service the way the front opens. And what you basically do is you have to get the gasket first. And I have the gasket. I picked it up today. And this is the new gasket for what they call the relief vent door or cover. This piece here is the relief vent door, and this can tilt up. I guess it can allow it to suck through there if there's too much pressure inside. In any case, you can see the old gasket, the white, is still there. When I opened it up, this piece of gasket was completely out of place, so there was no gasket in this corner. Not that I think that would really make much of a difference. The motor itself and the fan mounts in the back, and you can see the screw holes in the top. There's 4 self-drilling screws that were in place. Screws I have all down here. And those rubber pieces are the grommets that were on the motor, which I took off so I wouldn't lose when I just blew it out. In any case, I'm going to put the motor back together and put it in, and I'll show you what I'm doing. And once I get it in place, we'll probably see that you could understand how there could still be some vibration, and I'm going to try and eliminate that. So there is the motor. I'm just putting the grommets back in. Now you can see these are the grommets that were actually screwed to this mounting plate. So they were, when it's mounted, they're on the top. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. On the bottom, there's 2 more. These ones did not have screws through them. You could see a little bit of the round mark where they sat. Now, one of the grommets, I'm not sure if it was top or bottom, when I took it off, the grommet was flipped the wrong way. So there's a plastic insert, and that's the screw side, so the screw tightens down. When it tightens down, it squeezes the grommet and holds it tight in place, and the metal rides through the center, so it basically isolates the bracket from the motor. So anyway, I'm just sliding these all back in place before I put it together again. So when it's mounted, I'll flip it over. You can see this line of holes halfway down the bracket. So the motor sits like this. It's mounted like that on the plate, so it's at the bottom of the plate. These ones at the bottom, there are no screws through them. So when it's mounted, I noticed it was fairly easy to wiggle this like such, and that in itself would have caused more vibration moving the plate behind it. So in any case, I'm going to put it back together. I took the 2 grommets that were on the bottom because they've never been compressed, and I moved them and put them on the outsides here because they're like new and they've never been compressed. They're just stoppers so that the metal can't touch. They're not actually screwed in place. So I'm going to put the brackets back in place and prepare to put this back in, and I've got a couple ideas that I'm going to use to make sure we don't get any vibration. So this again is one of the grommets, and this plastic insert just slides in. I'm not going to take it right out because I can't show you with one hand here, but it goes back in, and that's how it sits. Now you can see in the bottom, you can see the ridge of plastic, so it only allows compression of about the thickness of the metal in between, and then that plastic end, I can feel it with my finger. So they say when you're putting it in not to over compress these grommets. However, I actually think that these grommets are meant to be compressed until the plastic is tight against the other end. And when it's tight, you're completely rubber isolated from whatever object you're mounting to. So I'm actually going to put them in and snug them up so that it compresses it as far as it can and tightens it, because it can't over tighten, in my opinion, because the plastic can only move a little bit, and if I don't move it far enough, it's just going to be moving all over the place. So anyway, we're going to try this out. So I have the motor and blower back mounted to the plate, and this is what I was explaining. At the bottom there are no screws holding this in, so you can see that it's very easy to have movement there, but it's rubber mounted and it's rubber at the bottom, so there is no way that metal can touch anything to rattle there. However, it's my belief that this whole plate when it was mounted, especially when you start getting dirt in the blower and it gets out of balance, that this whole plate was moving. It's all hanging in there, only screwed at the top, and it was very easy to move this. So I'm going to mount it back in, and if I believe that there's too much room for movement, I'm going to put fiberglass insulation, which is glass and fireproof, behind it in a couple of chunks just to generate some pressure so that it can't vibrate. So anyway, I'm going to attempt to mount this back in. There is a ground wire here that I put back that I had taken off because I took the whole motor assembly in the garage and blew it out. There's the two wires for the connection for the blower, and those two wires go in, feed down the back. And what I did was I took the electrical cover plate off the back. It made it a little easier to unplug one of them, and the other one is right here underneath that I got at. So it looked difficult at first, but it actually wasn't too bad. So I have the bracket with the motor on it now back in place. So it was fairly easy to get in. I dropped it down in the back there and just tried to line up one hole, this one up here, so that I could see it, and just held it and put this first screw in just finger tight, and then the whole bracket stayed put so I could easily line up the other ones. I snugged it up good, obviously being careful not to strip those because they're just self-drillers. However, it is much more firm than it was when I opened it up to take it out. So if I actually grab the plate, you may or may not see, like I can barely move that plate. You can see the motor flexing a little bit when I move the plate. But when I first got in here, that plate was quite loose. And so you can see the motor. I can lift the whole motor assembly and let it go. It's not actually hitting anything metal on metal. However, there's other things in the stove that could rattle, given if there is vibration there. So I was going to put some fiberglass behind the plate, and just so there was tension there, but I don't believe I need to. It's actually, the plate itself is much more solid than it was. So I think I'm going to get my jumper and I'm going to hook up the motor, get it running here before I close things up and see if everything sounds smooth. Now this is the relief vent, and I'm putting things back together, and I've just found something that I think may be the rattle I've been hearing. This relief vent has a door that can open, and I don't know exactly the purpose of it. It's obviously to prevent pressure from building or to be able to draw air. In any case, when I stand this door up and I just wiggle it, that sounds very much like the rattle I have. So it may not be the fan. It could be something to do with the pressure and the air in the stove and this thing starting to move with air flowing through it. But we're going to find out. I have the fan in and hooked up and jumpered it, and it's quiet as a mouse when I run it from 120 right now. So the fan is just absolutely perfect at the moment. So I've got the door, or the hatch, in place. It's not fully fastened. So what I did was I put this, I actually laid it down on the floor, laid the gasket, new gasket over it. The gasket was snug enough that it stayed put. Put one screw through in the top, gently slid it into place, got this one screw dead center through the gasket and into the starting hole, and then just very gently lifted and wiggled it, and had to make sure I had the gasket hole in these two. Now I know the gasket's sitting in the correct place, so I'm going to snug it up and tighten it down. So the logs are back in. Just takes a minute after snugging down that back cover. Now I'm going to swing the door shut, and it's very simple how the door closes. Just bring it around, and the hooks are right here, and if it's not snug, you can just thread these in to tighten up the clips, one top, one bottom. So we'll close it up here. So I'm very happy with this. Wasn't quite sure when I did it if it was going to solve the issue after seeing the noise that relief door makes when you move it. It sounded like what was making noise, and it could have been. So I'm going to just show here. You can probably hear it. I'm going to turn the knob. If yours is like mine, I have the adjuster knob for the fan speed on the back to turn it on and off and adjust the speed. So I'm going to turn it up. You can probably barely hear it here. It's down near low. So I'm going to crank it up here. And as I turn it up, there, it's at full speed now. And it is really blowing good and very quiet. This stove made noise at certain speeds when I got it, and I'm pretty sure now that some of those mounting grommets and possibly the screws for the bracket in the back were not tight enough, and there was too much motion available. And then as the stove is now 5 years old, and I believe the problem was, you know, they weren't tight enough, but it was extremely magnified by the dirt that was in that fan. So the fan was so full of dust. It was very heavily filled with dust. I blew it out with the air compressor, and that would have put that fan extremely out of balance. And being out of balance would have caused a heck of a lot of vibration for the fan trying to vibrate at high speed, at different speeds based on temperature, etc., everything. So anyway, hope this helps somebody else. It's not that difficult a job at all, and can be done in a couple of hours. Not a problem. Just take your time, and worked out well. And I'm very happy because for a $5 gasket, all my noise is finally gone. Anyway, if you find this useful, please like it, share it, or if you don't mind, subscribe and help me out.